Welcome, everyone, to the 792 Florida Sports Podcast, episode 28. I am Hunter Williams, your host as always, joined by Johnson Sports from the Jacksonville area. Once again on here, this is definitely, we made a habit of this.
Yes, we have, and it feels great to be back on the show again.
And we'll go ahead and hit on a topic that we were talking a little bit about before we went on, before we came on the air, and that was the situation with Pedro Menendez. With Kenny Sanchez getting the boot after his first win over Gainesville Eastside. So far, when I look at the situation, I've heard about it being a verbal altercation, but I've heard so far I've heard nothing about any physical altercations. So when I look at the situation, I still feel that Pedro Menendez High School, they obviously I think they jumped the gun a bit firing him, because at worst I can see maybe a suspension just with the facts that have been out there. Granted, there could be more facts that come into play later on, but from what I've heard so far, I didn't think there was enough to fire him there, but I guess they decided to go ahead with it anyway.
That's what I was going to say, too. I didn't know the exact reason, because first I heard someone say that he quit, which was, that would be crazy, but then I saw some of the stuff coming out, and then I heard, he got fired or whatever. And I didn't hear the exact reason why at all, but the only thing I knew was that they got an intern coach, and I don't know if he'll probably be the coach for the rest of the year as well, a guy named Mark Galela, I think that's how you pronounce it, according to what Will Brown said on Twitter. But it was very shocking. I don't know the full details, but if it was something like what you were saying, I think it was a bad call by Menendez Athletics for firing him, especially since he is a good coach. You know, he's shown a lot of good results, and he's well known across the country, especially when he was on that Netflix show QB1. And again, I don't know the full details still too, even though this news came out a week ago, but I just think I feel like it's kind of a waste if they basically fired him, especially if it was something that wasn't insane, like something so insane. And I'm not trying to bash them or anything, because, you know, decisions are decisions, but I mean, he came all the way from Nevada, I believe, was where he was still out in Nevada at the time. I know he came all the way to St. Augustine to do his job, and then only 2 games into the season and this happens. It's just something doesn't add up to me still to this day.
Yeah, it does feel like I would be surprised right now that if Mendes has held some information back from the public, which I just don't know why. Like, if there was more to the story, they could bring that information out there and essentially explain why he was fired, but all the information out there right now, it still looks ridiculous. They went ahead with firing him.
Yeah, and like I said, there's no real, I haven't seen the details at all, or enough details at all, other than that he's been fired and that there's an intern coach taking over. So, but like I said, it is what it is. But I just don't know what else to say right now, because I just don't understand the whole thing right now at all.
One thing I think is obvious, though, is it does definitely rip the sails out of probably the hype train for the Pedro Menendez Falcons, a program that really was starting to make an upward climb the last years. With something like this, it could easily tear apart all momentum they've had the last years and give it back to a team like St. Augustine or Bartram or Creekside or whoever. Like that St. Johns County area is has a lot of talent there. So doing something like this could easily hinder them long term.
Yep, that's what I was also thinking too. I'm like, how will this coach, fit in? Like how will he handle being the head coach as well at Pedro Menendez? But I guess we'll find out for their next game.
We do have two very good games involving St. Johns County teams. I guess we'll start with the obvious one, the rivalry game of St. Augustine Barton Trail. This game has really gotten good, especially the last few years. And I believe it was 2 years ago that Bartram finally got their first program win over St. Augustine, so they're at 2 wins in a row over the Yellow Jackets. But even before then, this game was like every year, how many more times till Bartram finally gets them? Because there were so many games for like a stretch of like 5 or 6 years that were decided by a touchdown or less.
Yeah, that was one of the games I played as a game of the week too. It'll definitely be interesting. But anyways, how about the results from last week's games? Did you have any results that were like pretty shocking to you at all?
There were a couple of them. I'll go ahead and look for a few of them. Obviously, I did see the Bartram got the win over Mandarin, which there was they performed pretty. They seemed to rebound a bit on defense after giving up 40 points against Creekside in their first game, so they definitely toughened up a bit on defense. And Mandarin's not a bad team. Without Carson Beck, they're probably a little bit down, but still going to be a good team to watch.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm actually looking to some of the results now. I know you usually report across the state, but there's actually a few that were really shocking too. One of them that was the big shocker for me was Creekside and First Coast. Creekside shut them out 35-0, and I was pretty surprised about that too, because First Coast, they have good talent too, and me seeing Creekside shut them out was just I was very shocked to see. And I know Creekside's a team that's on the come up too. They've got talent out there too. It's probably one of their best teams since the school's opened in 2008, and I was really surprised to see them shut them out. And then the other one I was going to talk about too was Fleming Island shutting out Fletcher 28-0. That one also shocks me too, especially since Fletcher has talent as well. But Fleming Island's a team that looks really good still too.
Definitely, Fleming Island should be a good team this year. I did notice there was it was out of our general area, but I did I was intrigued by it. Bishop Rote knocked off Lakeland Christian, who I had ranked 50th in the state, 21-20. So Bishop Rote's won 2 games in a row over solid 3A competition. Well, I guess American Heritage Delray was former 3A, because now they're in 4A. And now they're going to play Chaminade this week, so that should be a pretty good game over in the South Florida area. Clearwater Academy lost their second game in a row as they lost to Panama City Mosley. And then we had a pair of teams from the Jacksonville area go up to Georgia and lose, with Lowndes knocking off Oakleaf and Camden County knocking off Rains.
Yeah, some of those, I was surprised with the results too. Like the Camden County Rains one was kind of shocking as well, especially since Rains still has, I know they're not as strong as they were the last few years, but them losing to Camden County, I think by that much was a little shocking to me as well.
I also saw Baker County destroyed Ed White. That was a pretty seems like that was
47-0.
Yeah, and that was a second straight blowout win for Baker County. They looking good so far. Lee got their first win of the season, though they did give up 18 points to Reball, which historically has not been the strongest on offense. So I guess that does raise a little bit of a red flag with Lee and their defense. But that should have been expected considering the amount of talent they lost over the offseason. Obviously, we already mentioned Bartram Mandarin. Fort White lost to Santa Fe, who I believe had lost 2 games in a row already, as they had lost to Swanee and Gainesville. Then we had Madison knocked off Swanee. Bowles got a pretty good win over St. Augustine. It was close for a while, and Bowles pulled away late. Clay looking pretty good so far. They've won their first 2 games, and they completely destroyed Orange Park last week. Though they're going to be shut down for the next 2 weeks. Hopefully they'll be able to keep the momentum when they come back. Gainesville got shut out against Sanford Seminole, who plays Mainland this week. Mainland knocked off Spruce Creek last week. Trinity Catholic out of Ocala was able to knock off South Sumter in a high-scoring game. And that's really pretty much it for notable games I saw in this area last week.
Yeah, but and then I know we're about to talk about this week's game, but I think this week's scheduled games will be a lot better than last week's.
Oh yeah, last week's schedule wasn't even that bad, but I definitely think there's a lot better games, at least like in Northeast Florida. I think it was probably a little bit better last week in some other parts of the state, like Tampa, I think, had better games last week, but there's going to be some good ones still. And I guess the South Florida, you had the big matchup last week with American Heritage and Chaminade, which ended up being a pretty good game as well. But I guess the Chaminade Bishop Road game should be a decent one still.
Yeah, I agree. Let's go to predictions. I actually, the first one I want to mention, I have it listed as my NEFL game of the week. Bartram versus St. Augustine, which is a rivalry right there too. And usually that game would be considered the battle of the best, or the St. Johns County Championship, basically right there, because those two teams have always been pretty dominant over the years. I know Bartram still looks pretty strong. They're one of the strongest in the 904 area code, and St. Augustine is a team where they've been trying to. I know they had that one rough year, and they've been looking like they're going back to being pretty good again. But this is a game I think it will be close. But I got Bartram winning by 10 on this one.
I'm going to take the same pick. I have Bartram by 10 as well.
Yeah, it should be a good game, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's sold out, if anything. Another game we have listed, Mandarin versus Robert E. Lee. Well, Mandarin hosts Lee, technically, but I think will be a pretty close game as well. I know last year Lee beat Mandarin by at least 10, I believe. I can't remember last year's results. I believe I went to that game last year, actually, at Lee. And this one, I think, will be a very close matchup as well. I mean, both teams look like they're still solid, even with the loss of talent from last year. And I'm not saying they lost a lot. They only lost a little bit. And that's why I'm saying I think it will be a really close game. But I got Lee winning this one by 7.
I know that I'm going to be accused of being biased in this one from the Jacksonville people, but I frankly don't give a crap. I'm going to take Mandarin by 3 here. I feel like I was still concerned from what I saw last week when it comes to how that Reball was able to put up 18 points on that defense. I feel like Mandarin is at least as good as Reball, probably a bit better, especially after how well they were able to control the Barton Trail offense. Like, at the end of the day, I remember with Barton Trail to be held to 26 points, it seems like a lot, but looking at Bartram on most games, most of the time they're scoring 40 points. So that was actually a pretty good defensive performance by Mandarin. I think they'll have a much easier time trying to shut down Lee's offense. So I think Mandarin gets a close win by 3 here.
Yeah, and that's an understandable thing too. Like I said, this is a game where either one will win. But anything can happen on a Friday night, you know? Anything can happen.
Creekside at Bowls should be a good one.
Yes. Creekside at Bowls will be a good one as well. That was actually a game I was thinking about putting on my game of the week, too. Creekside, like we were talking about, they're a much stronger team, I think, this year. A team that will definitely turn heads, and I think is capable of making playoffs. And then Bowls, of course, you know, they've always been pretty great at football. One of the best football teams usually in North Florida. This one I'm gonna go with Bulls by 14, and I think both teams will at least score 20 points at least. So I think it'll be a kind of a high scoring game between both of them.
I could see that. I got Bulls as well. I'll go a little bit closer and say 6 points. I feel like Creekside definitely is flying a bit under the radar, it seems, even though they came within 10 points of arguably the best team in the area with Barton Trail, and then to top it off, they shut down First Coast 35-0.
Bulls should definitely be close.
Bulls is not. I would say they're very